Hey friends, welcome to the Church Planting Podcast. I'm Greg Nettle and I serve as president of Stadia Church Planting, where we help you start thriving, growing, multiplying churches. We're all about the next generation. On this episode of the Church Planting Podcast, we have my very close friend and colleague, Mr. Brian Tome. Brian Tome is the founding and senior pastor of Crossroads Church. It's a church that he started, he planted, and it now reaches tens and tens of thousands of people every week. He's authored 5 books, including his bestseller, The 5 Marks of a Man. As an entrepreneur, Brian has opened several other nonprofits, and he started Man Camp. It's a primitive weekend camping experience that has helped tens of thousands of men reclaim their code of manhood. He's an avid hunter, an adventure motorcyclist. He's married with 3 children and lives in Cincinnati, Ohio. And that's all the formal introduction. The reality is Brian and I have been friends for several decades. I've watched him. I respect him immensely as a leader and consider him a friend that I trust deeply. So welcome to the Church Planting Podcast. Looking forward to this episode. Welcome, Brian Tome, to the Church Planting Podcast.
Hey, it's great to be here, Greg. Thank you.
And we have known each other for a long time. Neither one of us had gray hair back then.
Oh, well, your hair wasn't as long and flowing as sexy as it is right now either.
Oh, I've always been more sexy than you, Brian.
I know, no.
Yeah. Brian, you're a church planter at heart. You've been with how many years have you been with Crossroads now?
I moved to Cincinnati to start the church at the end of 25, and our services were in March. First service was March of 26. Excuse me, no, hold on. I moved to Cincinnati March 95, and gosh, you're making me get.
This comes with age, Brian. It comes with age.
I guess so. We started the church on March 24th, 1996, so almost 30 years ago.
Almost 30 years. Yep. What led you to Cincinnati? Let's start there. It's the only place that would have me. People go like, well, how'd you know God was calling you there? And I went, because it's the only opportunity I had. And that's honestly the question. I was at a church, good church. I was there for 8 years, and I just felt like I needed to have my gifts used in a different way. And so I felt it was okay if I was a senior pastor someplace. I thought it was okay if I was a teaching pastor someplace, or I thought it was okay if I was a church planter. So I answered ads, I networked, I did all that I could. And in the end, it was just 11 people in Cincinnati who placed an ad in a magazine who I answered. And that was the only one who would have me. That was it. That's how I got called to Cincinnati. So 11 people put an ad in a magazine. Yep. I bet you probably went through a rigorous assessment program. And
I did. I actually had gone through, for our denomination, we had done a church planting assessment center thing. So I had gone through all that, and the denomination said, yeah, you're ready. Like, well, you go right now. And I said, okay. And
11 people.
Now what? And there was never any opportunities in the denomination at that time. It was the Evangelical Presbyterian Church.
Yep.
And so that's when I decided to, well, maybe I can find a mega church inside the denomination that wants to plant me eventually. And that didn't work. Well, let me find if I can see if I can find, is there a senior pastor gig I can use my stuff with or teach? And, for whatever reason, none of that stuff, there was ever any opportunities. There was an opportunity who turned me down. It was, I was in the running to succeed John Ortberg when he went to Willow Creek. He's at a church called Horizon out in California. I went out there, did the beauty contest, did the preach off, and I lost. So they didn't have me. So again, the only one who would have me were these 11 people who were about 30 years old in Cincinnati.
So 11 people, 30-year-olds in Cincinnati. You and your wife moved to Cincinnati. And did you have children at that time?
We did. We had 2 kids, aged, I think, 3 and 5.
Wow. Okay. Man, this is high risk. So you moved to Cincinnati with 11 people. And what'd you do? Did you meet in a house? How'd you get started?
Yeah, I said to all of the people who were in that core group, which was 11, I said, give me the names and numbers of everybody and I'm just going to get together with them, cast vision, see what it's like. So I had 2 breakfasts a day, 2 lunches a day, a coffee in the afternoon. And, after a few months, we had built our core up to 35, and I had gained about 35 pounds as well with all of that. And then we said, okay, well, let's go. Let's get a mass mailing campaign. So we did that. I think it was mailer of 11,000. Greg, you know this stuff. Like back in 95, you could go to the Fuller Institute and do church planting stuff. There was a guy named Peter Wagner and Carl George who did things. You had Ralph Neighbor who was doing some stuff, but there was not a system that was dialed, right?
Stadia wasn't even born then.
Yeah.
22 years old. We weren't even around.
I mean, you've got now that we utilize your services. You have a great assessment center the Crossroads uses but when I went to it, you talked to other pastors about this, and there's a what?
Yeah.
What are you? That was what was that 1992? I guess that I did it. And people weren't hearing this stuff. So the church planting machinery that we have today is great, but it wasn't around in 1995.
Okay, but Brian, here before we go on, I want to just draw one observation from what you did.
Yeah,
you worked your butt off.
Yeah,
I'm dead serious, because I think that everybody listening needs to hear that, because I think about River Tree, right? You and I were kind of on parallel tracks. And I remember, like, if someone visited our startup group, or, then came to one of our gatherings, man, I was like on the phone with them that week going, hey, can I set up coffee with you? Everyone, every single person. And I'm hearing you saying, give me phone numbers and I'm going to meet with your friends.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Exactly.
That's a work ethic thing.
It is a work ethic, and it's also, Greg, it's also a vision clarity. When I would meet with people, my goal, because this just came from what I learned, is I wanted to chase away 2 people for every 1 person who came. I had a guy, his name was Doug Rowe, pastor up in Dayton Vineyard, was really popping way back when. I got together with him. He handed me his business card and said, here you go. I was in Cincinnati for like a week. He said, here's a business card. These people who you think are going to be your close friends, they're going to rip your ears off. And when they do, just come to me and I'll patch you back up together. And I thought, yeah, I know this guy's telling a lot of wisdom here, because that's what I've heard from church planners again and again and again and again. The pain of people leaving, saying that you're not doing this, you're not doing that. Because when you're talking about a vision, Greg, it's only a vision if no one's ever seen it. If they've seen it, that's not a vision. It may be a good idea, but it's not a vision. So when you have a vision in your mind of the kind of church you want to start, you have to recognize everybody you talk to, they've never seen it. And they may nod their head and go, oh, yeah, I understand. But what they're really trying to do is they're going, okay, I think you're going to be like that thing over there, and I like that, so I'm going to be a part of it. And then when they come and they see how it rolls out, they just go, whoa, whoa, whoa. So when Doug said that, I said, I know that he's right here, but that seals a deal for me. I'm going to rip people's ears off before they rip my ears off. I'm going to be in these meetings, and I'm going to tell people, I don't think it's church for you. You're going to have to, you're going to not go to a service for a whole year, because we're going to need you serving. This is about reaching new people. So whatever you like about church, it's not going to be in this. We want to reach new people. It's evangelism. I see people like start new churches. It was great. I love all churches are starting. I want to say, can we be honest? When 90% of the people who come to your first Sunday have their hands raised, you're not reaching new people. You're reaching people who like church or got disinfected and disaffected with their previous church. What's your vision? Your vision, you got to do that and be really clear with it.
And Brian, do you remember, did you guys what was your vision? I know it was a church for people who were far from God, all that. Did you guys have a really clear vision when you started there?
We morphed it a couple years in, Greg, but it was, so I can't even remember the original one, but it's basically connecting seekers to a community of growing Christ followers who are changing the world. And
I like that. Yeah.
And the vision was just like in an automotive assembly line. Back then, America had plants and factories. People understood this. We don't have these things anymore. You'd say you have the raw material that comes in, and as it goes down the factory, everything starts being put together. And the problem with Christianity today is everybody's just trying to have services and meet everybody's needs. Now we're going to have things that reach people who don't know Christ. We're going to have things that develop people. We're going to have things that deploy people. And that's going to be different parts of the process. It's not going to be try to do it all on a Sunday morning.
Okay, so I know I'm going to ask you this, and I know that this is not something you would necessarily prefer to talk about, but I'm going to fast forward now. You've been there for 30 plus years now.
30, I think. Yeah,
30 exactly. Okay, and how many campuses does Crossroads have? Do you even know?
I do know. No, we're down to 11. We had 11. We had COVID and the smaller, weaker ones we just couldn't sustain. So we're down at 8, and now we're starting to build again.
And you're reaching, like, on any given weekend, how many people are you reaching?
We'll have 25,000 under roof, and then another few tens of thousands online. Yeah,
so from 11 people, not very successful. And, but thank God for his goodness and grace, right, Brian, and the impact. Because the other thing I want to point about now, and I know there's way more to this, like you guys, when you start and go, and because your second half, the end of your vision, it wasn't just to, the evangelize, to make disciples. It was also to do good. And what are your favorite things you guys are doing good at right now? Like, I know you're involved in sex trafficking, bringing young people out of that and all kinds of things. What are your favorite things you're doing right now?
Yeah, Robert Lewis had that book, Greg, years ago that really affected a lot of us. I can't remember the name of it. Basically was about how our missions and our outreach stuff is the best apologetic weapon we have for reaching people. And I read that.
Good.
I was like, oh man, that's really good. Because in my church background, Greg, coming from a very, very liberal, mainline denominational Presbyterian church, where there wasn't the Bible like at all, but there was all sort of humanitarian stuff. I always kind of put that humanitarian stuff in the, okay, you're not doing the Bible, so you're doing this instead. And when I read that book by Robert Lewis, I realized, oh no, this is obviously it's in the Bible. And this is the modern apologetic to help people see that we're people of action, we're people of love, and we follow a God that actually brings change. And when that sunk in, that changed a lot. So when that sunk in, that meant we started having campaigns. We've now had 6. We're in our 6th right now. We just finished it a few weeks ago, at least the commit part. So our second campaign then started including all sorts of outreach stuff and things for the least of these. And that's continued higher percentage. So this most recent one, the things we're doing now that you mentioned, the ones that I think people get most excited about because they're unique, they're true visions. We're building a 210,000 square foot recovery home for girls who we've rescued out of this child sex slavery industry over in Nepal, and there's a school on there. We are getting into every single prison in the United States by writing software that goes onto the iPads the prisoners get issued, and it's safe software. They can use it so they can have a spiritual home while in prison and outside. We've built a CityLink Center here in the city that we still fund a lot of money every year, which getting people out of working poverty. Compassion International, really, really big into that. So these things are just become part of who we are, and not just add-ons, which it was in the early stages.
Well, I mean, you guys have been known for your generosity, though, because I remember you got invited to the Leadership Summit, and I mean, you got to go there and talk about what was the phrase, outrageous generosity, or what was the phrase you guys used for so long?
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I remember it because it impacted me so greatly. And, we tried to follow in your footsteps up at River Tree and just have loved your example of generosity. So thank you for that. Well, hey, as you're looking back now, I mean, so today we have great assessment, we have great coaching, systems, processes, all of that stuff. And way more now. Talking about what you wish you would have known then, are there a few things? And here's the weird thing, Brian, you and I have talked about this a little bit. There's some of the mistakes we made when we were young and some of the brashness, right? Even, and damn the torpedoes, we're going to go do this. that I'm so glad we had, because I don't know if we would have made it without it, right? But there are some things I look back and I go, oh, that one, I could have done better at that.
Yeah, I'm looking behind you, Greg. You've got that cool broadsword on the back behind you. And I think my answer is it's a double-edged sword. I look back, and there's a lot of energy and time we spent problem-solving things that now we know this is just the way it is. Just do this. And I see that with the systems that are out there with various church planting organizations. Like, here's how much money you need to start. Here's probably what your percentage of where you're going with your first year. Here's the staff members you should hire first. There was so much stuff that we didn't know when we were figuring out that I wish there was a playbook that I was like, it would have saved so much energy, man, so much. Now, double-edged sword. Now, on the other hand, what was good about how you and I did it, Greg, back in the days was because there wasn't any standard, and I mean, I can't emphasize it, folks, enough. There was no standard, none. There just was. You could find a church that you wanted to be like and just be like them, but how you start things, it just wasn't that much of a thing, right? And that was a good thing, because you were on your knees in creativity, the creativity that we had to exert because we didn't know the answers. I think that's a tension that guys have got to deal with today. You can't just take the time, because maybe a word for 10 years. You just can't take those things and ignore who you uniquely are or what your unique community is. And so having both of those things in play is really important.
Okay, but you look back on it now, yeah. and like, for instance, how important was it for you to have this guy? Was it Doug, or I already forgot his? Yeah, I mean, did you have people like that in your life that did kind of say, "Keep going, Brian"?
I did. Steve Sjogren was another one. The Vineyard in Cincinnati. Yeah. Steve Andrews at Kensington Church in Detroit. And yes, I had a number of people who I would call all the time. But there's an interesting thing, even in the church plan. I've talked with Steve about this a number of times, Greg. I would call Steve, hey, what did you guys do with this? What do you do with this? Again, a lot of these questions you're going to get ahead of time now. But again, we didn't have them back then. And Steve would give me the answer. I'd be like, oh, great, good. And then one day I called him up and said, Steve, I think what I called him up about was a money debate I was having with our worship leader, how much he should get paid. I think that's what it was. And so I think it was on that question, he said, well, Brian, no one knows what you need to do better than you. And I said, okay. I hung up thinking, well, Steve just, I guess, was tired today, didn't have anything to offer. That's all right. Next time I called him up with a similar problem, he ended the same way. Well, you know what, Brian, no one knows what you need to do better than you. And that was the last time I called him for advice. I thought, he's basically telling me he doesn't have time for me. That's how I was hearing that. Now what I know, and I learned this a few years after he said the last time, now what he knows, no one knows, he was saying, Brian, you've now gotten to a place with the church and your vision where it's now unique and standard answers don't apply anymore. I can't just say, here's what it is, because you've grown to a place where your leadership structure, how you structure your weeks, what your salary structure is like, get inputs from other places, and there's common wisdom out there, and have that inform you. But now you come to a place where you're going to have to make a decision where you're the only one, and you're going to have to be okay with that.
But man, I can't stress enough how important it is to have the Steves and the Dougs and the Anderson that you can call, right? That are in your dial, that you can speed dial and go, man, I have these people in my corner. Right. You've been doing this for 30 years now plus, and have you stayed healthy, man?
Oh man. When you start planting, everything is about that first weekend, right? It's the money you're raising, everything is about that first weekend. And then after you have that first weekend, if hopefully you break 200 that first weekend, or that you're trying to break 200, at least that was the old standard. It's got to get there, right? Then it becomes, okay, how do I get through Easter? How do I get to Christmas? You get like the first year, like, of these things, right? And then, but what happens is after that first year or so, or as soon as possible, you have to get in a mindset of, all right, what do I have to do today that I'll be screwed if I didn't do it 10 years from now? That's a really, really hard shift. In fact, senior pastors I know have been in their place for decades still aren't doing that. They're still going year to year, budget to budget, Easter to Easter. So I came to me from the health, Greg, as I said, man, I see where I'm going here. I see what's going. If I don't put something in my life that makes me a happy person and makes my family happy, that I'm dad and I'm husband, if I don't get into some workout routines, by the way, not workout routines so that I look good on stage,
But you do. Are those blue contacts? Are those actually your piercing blue eyes?
Oh, you're so sweet. No, these are.
Talk about your health routine. What do you do with your health routine?
I work out. I've choose the closest gym to where my office is, and that one is 30 yards closer because I marched it off than the other one I went to. So I find an hour to get there pretty much every work day, and I do a Peloton at home. So generally 4 or 5 days a week, I'm have some sort of work. It's a fuddy-duddy workout, Greg. It's not some CrossFit.
I understand.
It's a fuddy-duddy. So that's what I do for that.
And then, relationally, I mean, that's one of the most challenging things over the years for planters is navigating the relational shifts in a growing church and so forth. How have you navigated the relational health piece? Yeah,
the relationships will really take a chunk out of your hide. I mean, a lot of guys just will not let people into their life because you can get burned, and I have been burned. But I've also learned in my own experience and what I've seen in other people's lives, if you don't have deep, abiding relationships inside the church, you're not going to last long. Every pastor I've seen who's fallen, and I can do a deep dive on them now, Greg, because I have connections. I know who's who. I can find how'd they go down. Everyone has an absence of two things. They are lacking close friendships inside the church, where people know what's going on in the church. They can see him up on stage. They go, oh man, hey, how you doing? You seem like you're a little curt. You seem like, are you doing okay? Laughing, all that stuff. And then number 2, life-giving hobbies. And for a man, those two things go together. Our life-giving hobbies are how we find our friends. The people who I'm close friends with inside Crossroads have the same hobbies as I do, or me and my wife. So those two things, I think you can have a great ministry and last if you don't have those things. Like Tim Keller, for instance, all that I know of him, I've met Tim a couple times, but all I know about him is that he didn't have those things. But he lasted. So whatever he had, it worked for you. Awesome, Tim. But the ones that fall, again and again, it's always those two things. So we've got to make the time and energy available to be healthy, which has those two areas.
Brian, one of the things I've always appreciated about you is your authenticity. And I mean, it really has been. I mean, I've watched numerous of your teachings online over the years and listened to you in different ways. And I've also known you personally. And it's always been the Brian that I see on the platform. I don't know that it's 100%. You're not bleeding all over the platform and stuff, but it's the same Brian I'm getting when I'm sitting down with you out back. And talk about the authenticity that you've lived in ministry. Has it gotten you in trouble? Is it something you recommend? Where are the boundaries? Talk about that a bit.
Yeah, it will get you in trouble in the early days until you set the culture. I was talking with, I don't think I won't mention his name, but people would know him, and just because I should ask his permission. But he was telling me that he and his wife, he took over for a founding pastor several years ago and is doing really, really well. And he and his wife went out to eat in another local town, close town, and they had a glass of wine. And she said to him, "How long are we going to do this for? Can we really live this way the rest of our ministry life?" Meaning, don't go to a restaurant inside of the town where your church is because you can't have a glass of wine there. Do it later. Do it someplace else. Because he would get burned by some people. Yep. So in the early stages, you've got to figure out, okay, this is not going to be received very well. Whatever it is, but I've got to get people to understand who I am and understand the culture of this church. And eventually, if I can do that, if I can weather the storm, eventually I'll be healthy and the church will be healthy and it'll be setting the culture and all this stuff. So authenticity, just being who you are, people should never be surprised when they see me someplace. They should never be surprised when they have a conversation with me because they understand who I am. People ask my closest friends all the time. They say, Brian Tome, what's he like? What's he really like? I said, well, you ever heard him preach? Ever seen him on stage? Say, yeah, exactly like that. Exactly like that. Like I smoked a Marlboro red cigarette on stage two months ago. It was phenomenal. God bless America. Actually, not the whole one, about 3 or 4 puffs. That's enough to piss off a lot of people. It was part of a Die Hard thing we were doing, the movie Die Hard. But it wouldn't surprise me because anybody who's been to a camp knows that I'm a moderate cigarette smoker when I'm camping. You know, I don't try to hide that.
No. I watched you did that biking motorcycle trek series that was published, and I watched that whole thing, and it was so fun to watch you authentically. And then I thought, that's Brian. It's just are you still riding bikes?
I am. But it's the authenticity too. Isn't like, okay, if you have any vices, make sure you do it publicly.
I agree. Right.
That may be a part of it, but it's also authenticity is also saying things like, I've never been happy with my prayer life. The only time I ever feel good about my prayer life is the first 5 minutes when I come away from a prayer meeting. That's the only time I feel good about my prayer life, right? I want to, give that to folks. Let them say, I want to say to people, I've struggled with having a systematic, disciplined Bible reading plan. Last 2 years, I've done really, really well, but I've struggled with that. People want to hear how you're doing in your spiritual journey. It's important. I want to
not candy coat it, right?
Not candy coat it. Like even say something like, I got a speaking gig recently, and first 10% goes to God. Can I say I don't know what it is? I can automate my giving really, really easily when it's in my paycheck, and I don't think about it. But when I've got to make that decision, I just got $1,000 that just came my way for a speaking gig, and I got to right off the top start with 100. Like it's hard. It's still right now. It's hard for me.
Yeah.
And I risk that some people would think, oh man, you still are struggling with that. Maybe you can't be my pastor. You're still struggling with that. But the vast majority of people says, really? You too? But you're in the fight. You're in the struggle. Okay,
Brian. So you are, and I'm not blowing smoke. You're a tremendous communicator, and so you're gifted, obviously, and spiritually gifted. But I also know it's a lot of work. Let's go back to the early days of planting today. All these different things. Talk about the sermon, the teaching process. How much time did you spend? It's hard to find time when you're planting a church, right?
Yeah, this is really good. Greg. You're asking, of course, you're a guru on all things church planting, which is why you have the organization you do. What a great story. What a great question. So this is one of the things that I've learned has to change over time. One of the ways you stay fresh in your preaching is you stay fresh in your preparation.
Good.
You keep trying new things. There's been seasons where I've been word for word manuscript and I highlight things. There's been seasons where I have a mind map that sits down on the floor with pictures and images. There's been seasons where I just have a Bible and my notes are in the Bible in pencil. There's all different, and all preparation is important because I want to keep myself fresh. And this has changed, Greg, over the last 30 years, not just keep myself fresh, but also the demands of leadership that are on me.
Yep.
When we started, I had someone told me ahead of time, say, do your first 3 messages, the first 3 talks you're going to do, because you're going to need that extra time for follow-up. I said, okay. So I had 3 in the can. And then I'd never given three sermons in a row before. I'd given 3 Young Life talks, but and I'm going like, I think I've said everything I know in the Bible. I don't think I know anything else. And then I'm going, oh my gosh, now I'm going to start planning. I'm a horrible planner. So I had one of the 11 people, Brian Wells. I say, man, would you have as a volunteer position, just run the teaching schedule, figure out who should teach when, what the topic is. And so since 1996, I've probably planned out maybe 4 or 5 series in the last 29 years because I'm not good at it. I'm not good. But this is me. I'm the kind of guy, Greg, if you say, look, we need you to talk on blank this weekend, I go, I got it. And I probably could it's going to come out of what I'm learning with God already. And I can bend it that way. So I work that way. This isn't how everybody works, but I work that way. So he did that. And then we went to, at one point, I'm doing 3 out of 4. That was a standard. I'm going to do 3. And then someone else going to do 1.
That was my standard, exact same. You got to find your own rhythm, but find it. And
now it's less than that because I've always said if I could lead Crossroads by not preaching, I would. I preach as often as I do, which is about half the Sundays right now, half the weekends right now, because I feel like I need that microphone to cast vision and model and all that stuff. But now we have a teaching team and I sit in meetings where we're thinking about what the things are going to be. Great. I just got out of a creative meeting today where they were telling me what the creative package is for the weekend, what that looks like. And that's where it is right now, but it's not for everybody, but that's just me. That's what works for me.
And so it forces you to develop a teaching team, develop other teachers. Right. It's one of the things I love. And you did that from the start.
Yes, from the very, very, very start. I think for guys like, say, John Mark Comer, a guy like John Mark, I mean, his bread and butter, his number one gift is teaching, right? So if you put all that stuff in and around someone like him, he'd probably freak out. Like, cause no, he's like, likes the isolation time, likes to study, likes to dig deep. But for me, it works really well to have people around and do it more in community.
What's the most important thing you do to love your wife, Brian?
Most important thing I do to love my wife is make sure that I'm home at a predictable time, that at this point in my ministry career, I don't have evening meetings. If there's a campaign or we have a prayer meeting tonight. We're in a digital fast, so we have prayer meetings every Monday. So that doesn't, but those sorts of things. And then I was able to handle those big rocks, quite some time ago. But now what it is I also honor her by being a planner for fun, which I'm not a planner. We're already talking about. I'm not a planner. I don't do well at all. But I'm better than her, so I have to plan. What's our next camping trip? What's the next thing we're going to do that's fun together? So that's how she receives love.
Hey, Brian, I deeply appreciate you being on this podcast, but even more so your partnership with Stadia. But even more than that, I remember the time you actually flew up to River Tree, spoke to our leadership. You and I have been on the phone countless times over the years. Thank you for being a great friend through that.
You're welcome, Greg. There's very few people who are our age who are faithful for the long haul. You're one of the ones who's been faithful for the long haul. They're just in very, very, very short supply. So for you to be faithful to Christ in 2 jobs, that I've known you is really, really impressive, man. So encouragement back to you. Thanks for having me on and being a blessing in my life.
Hey, let's run the next 10 together.
Amen.
All right.
Thanks for listening to the Church Planting Podcast. The Church Planting Podcast is part of the Stadia Podcast Network. To find more great episodes and to see how Stadia can help you start thriving, growing, multiplying churches for the next generation, be sure to check out stadia.org/podcasts.